So, before I get started, I just want to give a disclaimer. These podcasts are going to be more or less unscripted, and they're also going to be very unprepared and informal. By informal, I mean it's not going to be perfect, like I won't just be giving a speech, because I like to spend more time in the learning part itself and less time in making them, because well, then I can focus more on actually learning them. So do bear with me when I stutter, or I don't know, mumble, or just do so I'll do that for a while and quite a few times. So do bear with me, right? I like to start with an example. So imagine you have 30,000 taka, right? And you can either buy a laptop or you can buy a smartphone. And say for example, both of them cost 30,000, and you have to make a choice between which one you want. And you finally decide that, you know what, maybe I'm going to get the laptop for myself. I won't get the smartphone now or probably ever, but I won't get the smartphone now. I'll get myself a laptop now. So this example here highlights two fundamental basics of economics, right? Well, two foundations of economics, you can say. It is the idea of scarcity and it is the idea of opportunity costs. Um, so before I move on there, I'd like to highlight why exactly economics was, well, to an extent, why economics is studied, right? So economics is a study, it's a social science which studies people and how they use their wealth. So it's basically the study of the use of people's use of wealth. So that's why it's a social science. But it also tries to solve something which economists like to call the economic problem. It is the basic economic problem. Well, in a very bookish term, according to the book that I'm using for reference, it is the allocation of a nation's scarce resources between competing users that represent infinite wants. So, in simple terms, it means that you will always want more than whoever is giving you can give you. So I will always want more and more of whatever it is that I want, and whoever is going to supply them cannot always give me as much as I want, because there is a scarcity of resources. That means there is not enough resources for them to produce as much as I want. So I will always keep wanting more and more. Pretty greedy, but it's an economic concept. So let's talk about the problem of scarcity, right? So why exactly does scarcity occur? It occurs because of two ideas, right? Number one is that there is finite resources, and number two is that you have unlimited ones. And that is also, how you can call the basic economic problem. It's the idea of scarcity. So finite resources mean that resources are not unlimited. It means that no matter how much you want something, you can't always have enough of it, right? Say for example, I want a few 100,000 billion computers, but the producers who make the computers probably cannot make as many computers. Well, because, well, I think, for example, computers are made of silicon and many other materials, but say for example, silicon. Well, there is a limited amount of silicon that's present in the world, and also there are many other uses of silicon than just making computer chips, right? So this highlights the idea of finite resources, saying that you don't always have enough material to make enough things to fulfill your wants. And The other is that all countries have some resources, but they do not have all resources. For example, say the Middle Eastern countries have a huge supply of oil, but they have something which we have something that they do not. We have hilcha fish. So we can say that we have more hilcha fish than they have oil, and they have more oil than we have. No way, that doesn't make sense. Basically, what you can say is that we have more hilcha fish and they have more oil. I got lost. Do excuse me. As I said, you have to excuse me in these cases. So, yeah, that explains another thing. And another point here is that even if some countries have resources, they can't always effectively utilize them. Means that I could have all the water in the world, not water, I could have all the trees in the world, but I cannot use them properly because I cannot use them effectively because, say for example, I don't have enough carpenters or good enough carpentry workers, or yeah, you get the point. Or you can say that you have unlimited wants, which is second point of scarcity, which means that everyone keeps wanting more and more. It means that I have a computer now, but I want another better quality computer. And when I get that better quality computer, I realize, oh, I think I need a better computer, and then I'll keep wanting more and more. So, yeah, that explains it. So, the reason and another reason is that people oftentimes replace the goods that they have. Doesn't only mean that I want a computer and then I'll want, I don't know, TV set, and then I'll want more books, and then I'll want, I don't know, a bigger house, and then I'll want a spaceship. Doesn't It's not always that you keep wanting different things. You also want the same things. It means that I want a computer, now I'll want a better computer for two reasons, right? Maybe because the current computer doesn't work anymore, or maybe because, well, say for example, my current computer is, I think, Core i5 7th generation. So maybe I feel like maybe there's a Core i30 Ti Max Pro Edition processor, and I realize that I want that. So me getting that means I'm fulfilling my want, and I'm getting replacing the things that I have because they're either better or they're more fashionable. Maybe the current casing that I have for my computer is not good enough. I realize that maybe I want something better, maybe something lighter or something that looks cooler with better lighting. Yeah, so that highlights it. Something to note here is the difference between needs and wants. So most of us oftentimes we use needs and wants interchangeably. Like in the English language, I can just say I need this and I want this. There are differences, but it's usually oftentimes used as the same word. But in economics, it has a distinction. In this case, needs are things that people need to live, and wants are things that people don't really need them to live. So needs could be like water, food, warmth, shelter, and clothing, whereas wants could be holiday abroad. So, but you don't really need to go on a holiday abroad, but you just want to. You want a better house, you want a better car, you want better jewelry, but you need water, you need food. So that highlights the idea of needs and wants. So as I've already mentioned, right, the economic problem, which means that you have infinite wants, which is greater than finite resources, which so if you take that a step further, what you can understand is that if you want something, it means you have demand. There is demand for whatever it is that you want. If I want a computer, there is demand for computers, and whoever is making them is using resources to make it, and means they have, you know, supply. So what you can say is that one could mean demand, and on the other hand, it is greater than finite resources. So the resources which are used to supply you. So you can term that as supply. So in general terms, you can say the demand is greater than supply. So there are a few ways that economists try to solve this problem. So how do you try to overcome the basic economic problem? You have three questions which you ask: what do I produce? How do I produce it? And for whom do I produce it? And that explains a few different concepts I'll show you. So the idea of what to produce shows you, well, the concept of opportunity cost. How to produce them shows the idea of the structures of production. And third one, I will move on, which is for whom to produce. I will explain that in later episodes, hopefully. Let's talk about opportunity cost. Well, what is opportunity cost? So the principle behind the opportunity cost, the premise of opportunity cost is that resources are finite, which I've already explained why resources are finite. It means that, remember that example I gave at the beginning where I said you can either buy a laptop or you can buy a smartphone. So in that case, I chose the laptop. Means that I decided that my 30,000 taka would be better off by buying that laptop than the smartphone. Which means the smartphone, I gave up the smartphone. So that means the smartphone was my opportunity cost for the laptop. Or in bookish terms, opportunity cost refers to the next best alternative that is given up. You understand. And this is used because, well, governments, businesses, and individuals, they have to satisfy their many needs and wants. And boy, do they have so many needs and wants. And you do not have enough money, or the suppliers don't have enough resources to really give you what you want. That's why you have the concept of opportunity cost, which means something has to be given up to get something, because you don't have enough money and the people making those things do not have enough resources. So something that highlights this idea of opportunity cost is the production possibility cost. So I understand this is a podcast, so I can't really be showing you anything, but you can find it by yourself. In fact, I have a picture which I want to share, and I will share it with you. In the description, you'll probably find a drive link, which will take you to a folder where I will share all the pictures for this series, so you will find them there. So what exactly is the production possibility curve? Well, the curve, if you open the drive link, you will see it's actually a curve. So the curve shows the different combinations of the two goods that an economy can produce. And if all of its resources are used up, means that a country, say for example, has, I don't know, 100 papers. Small country, I know. Say for example, you have 100 papers, and you can either create, well, 100, so with the paper, you can either create paper boats or you can create paper airplanes. So if you have 100 papers, means you can either create 100 paper boats or you can create 100 paper airplanes, but you can create 100 of both. So I think that is a really good example. Oh my god, I love this idea. I just came up with this example. So, but in the figure, if you look at it, it shows something different, which is consumer goods and capital goods. So let's look at that diagram itself, right? So if you have, look at point A, you are producing 16 million consumer goods. And look at point B, where you are producing 8 million capital goods. In between, you have points B, C, E, F, which also highlight the different ideas, right? So you only have enough resources to, to produce whatever you want. So if you look at point E, in point E, it shows it's outside the curve. It means that you do not have enough resources, at least in the current time being, to produce that many resources of combination of both. And look at, okay, so now that we've gone for point E, let's look at point F. Point F here shows that it's inside the curve, which means it's not even on the curve, it's inside the curve. It means that you're not using all of your resources properly, and which is something called idle resources. You're letting the resources just sit idle and you're not really using them. That is also not something that you want. Let's look at point B. Here you're producing, well, however many, I think that's 14. You're producing 14 units of 14 million units of consumer goods, and you're producing 4 million units of capital goods. And on the other end, you're using, at point C, you're producing 8 million units of consumer goods and 7 million units of capital goods. So these are the different places where you can be on the production possibility curve and be producing different levels or different combinations of two goods. While it is true that a country will obviously not only be producing consumer goods and capital goods, it helps to explain the idea of opportunity cost, which means that you can produce both to their full extent. So that's what we're trying to show here. Okay, so let's move on to the next concept, which is that what exactly happens when an economy moves from one point on the production possibility curve to another. So, okay, this has a very bookish term here, but I will explain it by myself. Say, for example, you're on point B and you're producing 14 million units of consumer goods and 4 million units of capital goods. You decide that maybe our country should be producing some more capital goods. So then you decide, okay, so let's go to 7 million units of capital goods and you produce 12 million units of consumer goods. This means that you're producing 3 million more units of capital goods. But in order to do that, you have to give up the 2 million units of consumer goods. So in this case, you're changing. So the 3 million units of capital goods, that extra that you get, in order to get that, you have to give up the 2 million units of consumer goods, which is the opportunity cost. So do you get the point? Yes, you do. If you don't, yeah, if you don't, you can comment and I'll try and explain in the comment section if you want to, or you can also try and read up on your own if you want as well. So there are some reasons of positive and negative economic growth, right? So here you can understand that the country is at one point, but if your country is, not that big, maybe your country is smaller, your curve will also be smaller. It will be smaller, so it will be on the left and it will be a way smaller curve. Maybe you can produce, I don't know, 8 million consumer goods and 4 million capital goods. So that's like the extent of both ends. You can't produce more than that. Or maybe your country is so good and so big and so efficient and has so many resources that you can produce, I don't know, 100 million units of capital goods and another 200 million units of consumer goods. Yeah, it's possible. So that would mean your curve is way larger and it's on the right side. So these are all very much theoretical ideas, but you will eventually get them. So what really causes economic growth, right? Positive economic growth. Well, one of the few reasons is technology. Maybe you have robots or computers, or you have better telecommunications. Maybe you have 5G now, or you have internet, or for example, I think I have 20 Mbps internet supply. I know it's very less, but say for example, now I have 100 Mbps speed of internet. That means I can, if my job is something related to the internet, I can do it 5 times faster because my internet is now 5 times faster. So you get the point, right? So for example, a factory could have, robots build the whatever they build and replace the workers that used to work there. For example, if a worker made 5 units of whatever they make, now you have a robot which is producing 15 units of whatever you make at the same time. Means that you're 3 times faster. And these are the few things. If you have new technology, your country can be more efficient, which is something that a real example would be the internet as a whole, right? So when the internet came, economic growth increased at an unprecedented level, which is called, I think I read it, it's called the hockey stick of economic growth because it's actually a hockey stick. So the economic growth from the very ancient times, from 1200, used to be very less. And then suddenly around the Industrial Revolution, when you had new machineries come out, that is when the economy boosted at such a rate that nobody could ever imagine. And then internet augmented that boost and really made it like a very big rate of economic growth. You understand, right? The pauses mean that it's really big. Then you have improved efficiency. So, yeah, maybe you just had a very more efficient way of doing it. So, say for example, this is an idea. Actually, I'll bring up this idea later on, but say for example, in order to cook something, first you need to bake it in an oven, or yeah, and then you have to sprinkle some things on it like toppings, and then you have to serve it. But maybe there's a new machine that bakes it and tops them at the same time, or I don't know, something like that. So that would definitely mean that you have more efficiency. You can produce something faster and by using less resources. That would mean that you have more resources to use elsewhere, and that means you have an economic growth, which means you're using resources more efficiently and you have more resources left which you can use elsewhere. And then finally, you have education and training, which means that you have educated workers who really know what to do. Like if you tell an illiterate person you have to do this, or they, I don't know, get a machine and they don't know how to operate it, versus a person who knows how to read the instruction manual and they read the instruction manual and they know what to do, and that would definitely mean that they're more educated, they're better productive, they're more productive, and they can, well, produce things more efficiently. Yes. And the lastly, you have new resources. So if a country happens to find new resources, the PPC, which is the production possibility curve, will grow, which means that a country can produce more at, yeah. So there is also something called negative economic growth, and this happens for a particular few reasons as well. This occurs when your resources are out, so you don't really have any more resources. So now you're like, oh, okay, so I am out of resources. What do I do now? That happens. And that is when you have negative economic growth. Maybe you're out of oil and you need oil and you can't find oil. So, well, efficiency decreases. Well, not efficiency, just production decreases as a whole, and you have negative economic growth. That means your PPC will become smaller, the production possibility curve. And then you have weather patterns such as dry weather affecting agri production. And then you have something which is very important, is the brain drain. I think you've heard of this. If you haven't, it means that people, or very intellectual people, or people in general, migrating abroad or to other countries for better opportunities. It means that maybe I am really talented and I know how to do things very effectively, but in my country I do not have enough job opportunities, so I move abroad or go somewhere else for better opportunities. And this is another reason why negative economic growth occurs, because, well, most of the labor force goes away. It means that you don't really have any good labor in your own country. So that also causes negative economic growth. And finally, you have wars, well, definitely, and then some other sorts of political conflicts and natural disasters as well. So for this reason, the PPC will shift inwards, which means it will shift left and it will shift inwards. This means that the country's productive potential has fallen down. So it was a very long episode, and to really explain to you, this is one of the more simpler ideas of economics. I hope that I will be able to make the episodes shorter in the longer run. Well, in future episodes as well. That's what I mean. So I think that's it. So, but before I actually finish this, right? I, as I already mentioned, that the idea of the drive link, right? So you can always check out the drive link and you can find the pictures there. I'll make all the folders there, and yeah, that's it. I would ask you to subscribe and like and share, but I wouldn't really do that because honestly speaking, this is a personal project. I am making this project for myself. So, and for myself and also for others who want to benefit from it. So I wouldn't really want to force you to do it. If you actually like it, if you actually like the content that I make, or if you liked this, then there'll be more like this. Or if you just have a lot of free time in this quarantine, you can definitely subscribe, but you don't really need to. Well, you didn't need to before either. I just had to mention it. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. I wish you all the best in your journey of gathering knowledge.